Despite Nikola Tesla's obvious brilliance, he died penniless and practically unknown. It's only recently that we've fully come to appreciate all that he did for us.
We all know Nikola Tesla died broke and alone, but almost nobody knows why he went insane in his final years. He spent the last decade of his life talking to pigeons and terrified of round objects. We always thought it was just OCD. We were wrong. A resurfaced set of documents from his Colorado Springs experiments proves he made contact with a presence in 1899. He spent 40 years trying to keep them out, and the final pages of this lost notebook reveal that he failed. What he saw at the end explains everything. The $25 nightmare. It started with a gavel hitting a podium in a dusty room in New Jersey. The year was 1976. The location was a chaotic estate sale in Newark. Most people were there for the antique furniture or the old silverware. But a local man named Dale Alfrey had his eye on something nobody else wanted. In the corner, stacked under a pile of old, rotting magazines, sat 4 heavy wooden boxes. They were locked. They were dirty. They smelled like a damp cellar, and to everyone else in the room, they looked like trash. Dale bought them for $25. He didn't know it yet, but he had just purchased the most dangerous documents in American history. He dragged the heavy boxes out to his car, the metal handles digging into his palms. He drove home, humming along to the radio, completely unaware that he was transporting classified material that the FBI had been hunting for 30 years. When he got them into his basement, the atmosphere changed. It wasn't just a feeling. The air actually felt colder. He grabbed a screwdriver and pried the first box open. The hinge snapped with a rusty screech that echoed off the concrete walls. Inside, he found bundles of papers wrapped in oilcloth. He unfolded the first sheet. It was a diagram. But it wasn't like any machine he had ever seen in a textbook. It looked like a wingless aircraft powered by a circular engine. He opened the next bundle. It was full of handwritten notes. The ink was faded, but the handwriting was sharp, elegant, and unmistakable. Nikola Tesla. Dale sat on his basement floor for hours reading by the light of a single bulb. The early pages were fascinating. They detailed experiments with high-voltage electricity and wireless transmission, but as he moved through the stack, the tone of the writing changed. The handwriting became jagged and rushed. The ink stains were heavier, as if the writer was pressing down hard on the paper in a panic. Tesla wasn't writing about coils and currents anymore, he was writing about the voices. Dale realized these weren't just lab notes. This was a diary of a man losing his mind, or a man who had discovered a truth so heavy it crushed him. Tesla described sitting in his lab in Colorado Springs, tuning his massive receivers to listen to lightning storms. But in the silence between the thunderclaps, he heard something else. He heard a pattern. 1, 2, 3. It wasn't static. It wasn't background noise from the sun. It was a mathematical code. And it was coming from deep space. Dale read on, his heart pounding against his ribs. Tesla wrote that he initially thought he was listening to Mars, but the final pages in the box suggested the source was much closer and much more hostile. Suddenly, the lights in Dale's basement flickered. He looked at the papers again. The final entry in the notebook wasn't a scientific observation. It was a warning written in shaky capital letters. "We have been marked." Dale didn't know it yet, but by opening that box, he had just put a target on his own back, because someone else was looking for these papers, and they weren't going to pay $25 for them. The Colorado Signal. To understand why those final pages are so terrifying, we have to go back to where the nightmare started. It is 1899. Nikola Tesla has moved his operations to the high desert of Colorado Springs. He is there to test his magnifying transmitter, a machine designed to pump millions of volts of electricity into the earth itself. Picture the scene. A wooden barn in the middle of nowhere, a copper pole sticking 200 feet into the air. Inside, the air smells like ozone and burning metal. Tesla is sitting alone in the dark wearing thick rubber-soled shoes to keep from being electrocuted. He is tuning a sensitive radio receiver. This is important because at this time, radio doesn't really exist yet. Marconi is still playing with toys. Tesla is years ahead of everyone. He built a device capable of picking up electromagnetic waves from the other side of the planet. But on a clear night in July, he picks up something that isn't from this planet. But here is the catch. Tesla was listening for thunderstorms. He wanted to track lightning strikes moving across the globe. Instead, his equipment started to chirp. Beep, beep, beep. It was rhythmic. It was artificial. Tesla knew the difference between natural static and a generated signal. Nature is chaotic. Noise from the sun or the aurora borealis sounds like a hiss or a crackle. This sounded like a clock. At first, Tesla was excited. He wrote in the journal that he felt he was the first to hear the greeting of one planet to another. He was convinced he had tapped into a communication network used by an advanced civilization on Mars. He even went to the press. In 1901, he told a reporter, "I have a deep conviction that highly intelligent beings exist on Mars." The scientific community laughed at him. They called him a lunatic. They said he was listening to atmospheric noise. But Tesla was the greatest electrical engineer in history. He didn't make rookie mistakes. As the weeks went on, the signals changed. They weren't just counting anymore, they were complex. Tesla began to notice that the signals became stronger when Mars was close to Earth. But then, something strange happened. He realized the calculations were off. The signal source was moving too fast to be on a planet. It was coming from something in orbit. This is where the story gets dark. In 1899, humans didn't have satellites. The Wright brothers hadn't even flown a plane yet. There should have been absolutely nothing orbiting the Earth. Yet Tesla's equipment was locking onto a massive object in a polar orbit. This object is what modern conspiracy theorists call the Black Knight satellite. Legend says it is an ancient alien probe that has been watching us for 13,000 years. Tesla's excitement turned to dread. He realized the signal wasn't a greeting. It was a telemetry stream. It was gathering data. He started writing feverishly in his notebook, trying to decode the pulses. What he found terrified him. The signals weren't just numbers, they were a biological scan. The entity in the sky wasn't studying our geography, it was studying us, our biology, our weaknesses. And according to the notes Dale found, Tesla believed the scan was nearly complete. He stopped sleeping. He started hallucinating flashes of light. He became obsessed with the number 3, 6, and 9, claiming they were the key to the universe, or perhaps the key to locking the door he had accidentally opened. He packed up his lab in Colorado Springs abruptly in January 1900. He destroyed a lot of his equipment. He never told the public why he left so fast, but the notebook reveals the truth. He didn't leave because he ran out of money. He left because the signal had stopped repeating and started responding to him, and the message it sent back was not friendly. The Tunguska connection. Here is where the notebook gets truly wild, and this is a theory that connects Tesla to one of the biggest mysteries of the 20th century, the Tunguska event. On June 30th, 1908, a massive explosion flattened 80 million trees in Siberia. It was 1,000 times more powerful than the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. The shockwave went around the Earth twice. Scientists say it was a meteor, but there was no crater, no impact zone, just a massive airburst that knocked people off their feet 40 miles away. For years, people have whispered that Tesla was involved, but the notebook might actually prove it. According to the transcripts, in the months leading up to June 1908, Tesla was at the New York Public Library. He wasn't reading science books. He was checking out detailed maps of the Siberian tundra, specifically the least populated areas of Siberia. Why? At the same time, Tesla had contacted the famous explorer, Admiral Robert Peary. Peary was trying to reach the North Pole. Tesla sent him a cryptic telegram telling him to watch for strange phenomena on the ice. The theory, supported by the frantic calculations in the Resurfaced notebook, is that Tesla was testing his peace ray. He wanted to prove to the world that he had a weapon so powerful it could end all wars. He intended to fire a concentrated beam of energy from his Wardenclyffe Tower on Long Island, aiming for the remote path to the North Pole where Peary would see the flash but be safe. But something went wrong. The notebook details Tesla's horror when he realized the targeting was off. The Earth's magnetic field shifted the beam. Instead of hitting the ice near the pole, the energy wave overshot and slammed into the Tunguska region of Russia. When news of the explosion reached America, Tesla didn't celebrate. He fell into a depression. He realized that his weapon was too uncontrollable. He wrote in the notebook, "I have released a demon I cannot leash. The power is too great for the hands of men." This aligns perfectly with history. In 1908, Tesla suddenly stopped promoting his high-power wireless projects. He dismantled the Wardenclyffe Tower shortly after. He went from being a man who wanted to power the world to a man who wanted to hide his work. But the notebook suggests another terrifying possibility. Tesla didn't just fire a beam of energy, he fired a scalar wave, a wave that disrupts the fabric of space-time. He mentions in the notes that the explosion in Tunguska didn't just burn trees, it created a temporal rift. He claimed that the entities he saw in Colorado Springs were drawn to the energy burst like moths to a flame. By trying to build a weapon to defend Earth, he might have accidentally rang the dinner bell even louder. He spent the rest of his life trying to undo the damage. This leads us to the Philadelphia experiment connection. The notebook contains scribbles about optical invisibility and bending light around objects. Tesla believed that if we couldn't fight the entities, we had to hide from them. He began working with the U.S. Navy in the 1930s. The project was called Project Rainbow. You might know it as the Philadelphia experiment. The goal was to make a ship invisible to radar. But Tesla's notes warn that you cannot bend light without bending time. He pleaded with the Navy not to use human crews. He told them the sailors would be embedded in the bulkhead. He was right. Legend says the USS Eldridge disappeared in 1943, and when it came back, sailors were fused into the metal of the deck. Tesla died in January 1943, months before the final experiment. But the notebook implies he knew it was going to fail. He tried to sabotage the project before he died, but the government pushed forward. They didn't care about the risks, they only cared about the weapon. The missing trunks. Fast forward 43 years. It is January 1943. The world is at war. Hitler is tearing up Europe. And in New York City, Nikola Tesla is dying in room 3327 of the New Yorker Hotel. He is 86 years old. He is skin and bones. He has the "Do Not Disturb" sign on his door. When the maid finally ignores the sign and enters the room, she finds him dead. Within hours, the FBI is swarming the hotel. This isn't normal procedure for a dead inventor. But Tesla wasn't normal. For years, he had been telling the press he had invented a Teleforce weapon. The media called it a death ray. Tesla claimed it could melt an airplane engine from 250 miles away using a concentrated beam of particles. The U.S. government was terrified. They were scared that Nazi spies would get into that room and steal the plans. So the Office of Alien Property seized everything. They hauled away 2 truckloads of papers, furniture, and heavy trunks. They took them to a warehouse in Manhattan. And this is where it gets weird. The government needed a scientist to go through the papers and tell them if the death ray was real. They hired a professor from MIT. His name was John G. Trump. Yes, the uncle of the future president. John G. Trump spent 3 days reading Tesla's private papers. He wrote an official report saying that Tesla's notes were speculative, philosophical, and somewhat promotional, and that there were no workable plans for a weapon. Basically, he said there was nothing to see here. But historians have always found that report suspicious. If there was nothing of value, why did the government keep the files classified for 75 years? And why did so many trunks go missing? According to the FBI's own records, there were 80 trunks. But later, when the estate was released to Tesla's family in Yugoslavia, there were only 60. 20 trunks vanished into thin air. The notebook Dale found contained the technical details that Trump claimed didn't exist. It had the schematics for the particle beam weapon. But the notes explained why Tesla built it. He wasn't building a death ray to fight the Germans. He wasn't building it to fight the Japanese. He designed the weapon to fire upwards. Tesla wrote that we needed a planetary defense system. He was trying to build a shield. In the later pages of the notebook, he describes the teleforce as the only thing that could stop the etheric ships he had seen in his visions. But the government didn't care about aliens. They only cared about winning World War II. They saw a weapon they couldn't understand, written by a man they thought was senile. So they buried it. Until Dale dug it up. But keeping secrets like this is dangerous. After a few weeks of reading the notes, Dale noticed a car parked across the street from his house. It was a black sedan, model unknown. The windows were tinted so dark he couldn't see inside. He told his friends he felt like he was being watched. He started hearing clicks on his telephone line. Then, one afternoon, 3 men in black suits knocked on his front door. They didn't show badges. They didn't smile. They spoke in a strange, monotonous unison. They told Dale that the papers he bought were government property and needed to be returned immediately. Dale was a patriot. He was also terrified. He handed over the boxes. The men took them, turned around, walked to their car, and drove away. Dale never saw the boxes again. But here is the crazy part. Dale had been smart. Before the men arrived, he had spent weeks transcribing the notes onto legal pads. He didn't have the original drawings anymore, but he had the words. He had the text of the final pages. And what those pages say is the reason the men in black came for him. The harvest theory. So what was in the final pages? What was so dangerous that the government had to erase it? According to Dale's transcriptions, the end of the notebook is a descent into absolute madness, or absolute clarity. Tesla describes the nature of the beings he heard. He calls them etheric entities. He realized they weren't coming from another planet in a spaceship made of metal. They were coming from right here. They live in the space between spaces. They are interdimensional. Tesla theorized that human beings are not the top of the food chain. He wrote that we are energy sources. He claimed that these entities feed on human emotions, specifically negative energy. Fear, anger, hatred, war. He called Earth a farm. This sounds like science fiction, but it aligns perfectly with the Loosh theory that consciousness researchers would talk about decades later. Tesla was 70 years ahead of them. The signals he heard in 1899 weren't just greetings, they were the dinner bell. In the final entry, dated shortly before the notebook ends, Tesla makes a terrifying prediction. He claims that for thousands of years there has been a natural barrier protecting Earth from these entities, a frequency shield that kept them from fully entering our physical reality. But the industrial age ruined it. Tesla wrote that our use of electricity, the very alternating current he invented, was disrupting the Earth's natural frequency. We were blasting the planet with so much electromagnetic chaos that we were punching holes in the barrier. He wrote, "I have made a terrible mistake. I thought I was enlightening the world, but I have only lit a beacon for the predators." He believed his global wireless system, the Wardenclyffe Tower, would have destroyed the barrier completely. That is why he was secretly relieved when his funding was cut. He realized that if he turned that machine on, he might have let them all in. But the scariest part of the notes is his description of the infiltration. Tesla claimed these entities don't need to invade with ships. They can attach themselves to human minds. They can influence leaders. They can start wars just to generate the negative energy they need to feed. He looked at the First World War, then the rise of the Nazis. He saw the world descending into chaos and believed it was being orchestrated from the outside. He wrote, "They are not coming. They are already here. They are whispering into the ears of our generals and our kings. They are guiding us toward our own destruction because the destruction is what sustains them." The Death Ray was his last-ditch attempt to build a physical weapon that could hurt a non-physical enemy. He believed that high-energy particles could disrupt their cohesion. He was trying to give humanity a gun to fight a ghost. But he died before he could build it. The final sentence of the notebook, according to Dale's memory, was a plea. "If we do not close the door I open, the sky will burn and the silence will be broken by screams." Dale tried to tell people what he found, but strange things kept happening. His computer hard drives would get wiped. His notes would disappear from his desk. He eventually went silent, fearing for his life. The original boxes are gone. The men in black, or whoever they were, did their job. But the story leaked out. And now, looking at the modern world, you have to ask yourself if Tesla was right. The modern proof. It is easy to dismiss all of this as just a story. It is easy to tell yourself that this was just the rambling of a crazy old man sitting alone in a hotel room with a box of dusty papers. It feels safer to think that way. But look around you. Really look at the world we have built. We are currently living in the most electrified time in human history. We are swimming in a constant ocean of invisible signals. We are surrounded by Wi-Fi, 5G towers on every corner, and massive satellite networks beaming data down from space 24 hours a day. Tesla had a theory about this. He believed that the Earth was protected by a natural barrier, an electromagnetic shield that kept things out. But he warned that if we blasted too much artificial frequency into the atmosphere, we would weaken that barrier. If Tesla was right, we haven't just weakened it, we have shredded it. We have turned our planet into a glowing beacon of energy that screams, "We are here," to the rest of the universe. And now, look at what is happening in our skies. For decades, people were called crazy for seeing things in the clouds. But since 2017, everything has changed. The US government has officially admitted that UFOs are real. They call them UAPs now, but the reality is the same. They have released military footage of objects defying the laws of physics. These objects stop instantly. They accelerate faster than any jet engine possibly could. They drop from space into the ocean in seconds without making a splash. Here is the terrifying part. These objects move exactly like the designs Tesla drew in his final notebooks. He described wingless torpedoes that could move through the air using energy instead of propulsion. Is it a coincidence? Or did Tesla figure out the physics of the visitors 100 years ago? And then there is the Elon Musk connection. Think about it. The richest man in the world, a genius engineer, names his company Tesla. He pours billions of dollars into building a massive network of satellites, Starlink, that wraps the entire Earth in a grid of signals. To the public, it's just high-speed internet. But to conspiracy theorists, it looks suspiciously like the world wireless system Tesla wanted to build before his funding was cut. Elon is obsessed with making humanity a multi-planetary species. He isn't just talking about exploration, he talks about it like it is an evacuation. He constantly speaks about the Great Filter, the idea that civilizations destroy themselves before they can escape their home planet. He talks about the dangers of AI. He seems desperate to get us off this rock. Does he know something we don't? Did the files that John G. Trump reviewed in 1943 eventually find their way into the hands of modern tech billionaires? Is Starlink a shield, or is Mars a lifeboat because Elon knows the barrier is already gone? There is a theory that the Black Knight satellite Tesla heard in 1899 is still up there. He said he intercepted a signal from it, a repeating code. Some astronomers today claim it is just space debris, maybe a thermal blanket lost during a spacewalk in the 90s. But that doesn't explain how Tesla heard it 50 years before we even launched a rocket. If that forgotten notebook is real, then the timeline is ticking down. Tesla believed there was a threshold, a specific point of no return where the parasites would be able to manifest fully in our reality. He believed they feed on our energy, on our wars, and on the chaos we create. Tesla died alone and terrified. He didn't die happy about his inventions. He died scared that he had doomed us all by teaching us how to harness electricity. We have spent the last century celebrating Tesla as the futuristic genius who invented the 20th century. We call him the father of the modern world. But maybe we should have listened to him as the man who was trying to prevent the 21st. The resurfaced pages are gone again, likely hidden in some deep government vault where the public will never see them. But the warning remains. Next time you walk outside at night, look up. When you see a satellite blinking across the stars, ask yourself, is that one of ours? Is that Elon's satellite? Or is it the watcher that Tesla heard 100 years ago? And if it is watching us, is it getting ready to harvest? So, do you think Tesla really contacted aliens, or did the isolation just break his mind? And why did the FBI try so hard to hide his papers if they were just nonsense? If this story gave you chills, hit the like button and subscribe. We are digging deeper into the files the government tried to burn. You don't want to miss what we find next.